So, it's raining again. Oh, sorry, another audio and visual test. Can you hear the rain? So here we are again, and behind me we have the burning fires of the pit of hell. Better or worse? Better or worse? There you go, this should be better. So, here we are again to discuss the third episode in Hermeticism. Now, on the first episode, we discussed the beginnings and evolution of Hermeticism. And on the last episode, we discussed 10 foundational concepts of Hermeticism. And for those following the channel, you'll know that we've already discussed both Neoplatonism and Gnosticism. If you've been paying attention, then you'll realise that these three philosophies, they have a lot of things in common. There are a lot of similarities and a lot of crossovers. So what we're going to do today is to take a look at all of these similarities and these crossovers and ask some questions. Or more precisely, answering some questions. I mean, have they all come about to the same conclusions because they happen to be right and they're reinforcing each other? Or is there something else going on? Well, let's find out. So let's start this ball rolling then, and we'll talk first of all about what some of these similarities are. So at the heart of all of these philosophies, there's one fundamental concept that they all share together, and that is that they all believe that everything is first created by the divine and a set of emanations that create existence. And they all speak of the soul's descent into matter before finally, through the accumulation of wisdom and knowledge, they all return back to the divine. But really, to understand how all of these philosophies are linked, we need to step back a bit and we need to go back to Plato and Platonism. You see, Platonism is the intellectual root for everything that follows. Now, Plato, who was around in the 4th century BC, taught many things. Perhaps the most important for our discussion is his theory of forms. And this theory tells us that everything in existence is just merely a shadow, an imperfect form, an imperfect copy of a supreme, perfect archetype. And he tells us that every living soul originates from this higher realm and is inevitably trapped within the material world by our embodiment within it. And the only way to escape this prison is through knowledge and an understanding of our true origins. And so we can clearly say this is the very same core concept that runs through each of these philosophies. You could say then that Platonism provided the metaphysical scaffolding that was taken and developed further by each of these other systems. Now, Hermeticism and Gnosticism both evolved at the same period of time, somewhere between the 1st and 3rd centuries. Now, Neoplatonism, for its part, brought in by the theories of Plotinus, didn't come about until the beginnings of the 3rd century, and was a revised view and an enhanced view of Plato's theories. So let's start with Hermeticism and Gnosticism, and the interesting thing here is the influences on each of these traditions. Gnosticism first appeared in the Eastern Mediterranean, and it was here that Judeo-Christian beliefs merged with Greek philosophy. They reinterpreted Jewish scripture, claiming that the God of the Old Testament was an ignorant and false deity. This God they called the Demiurge, and they believed that the true God was a hidden transcendent source beyond him. And they incorporated elements of Persian dualism or Zoroastrianism, thus adding a stark split between light and darkness and spirit and matter. It borrows heavily from Hebrew cosmology, in particular the creator god, in this case the demiurge or the false god, and the concept of angels and divine hierarchy. In short, it's a belief system that focuses on dualism and salvation from the material world. Very much an evolution of apocalyptic Jewish thought blended with Hellenistic mysticism. Now, at the same time, in another part of the world, a Greek influence had also spread to Egypt. And it was here, particularly in the city of Alexandria, where the Egyptian priests began to see the wisdom of Greek philosophy and merged it with their own religion. And so it was then that the Egyptian god Thoth merged with the Greek god Hermes to form Hermes Trismegistus. Like Platonism, Hermeticism tells us of a hierarchical cosmos and a fall and descent into the material before a final ascent of the soul. And like Gnosticism, it very much emphasizes knowledge as the key to liberation. It teaches that to understand nature is to understand the mind of the divine. So key takeaways here on both of these systems is that Hermeticism seeks to understand and harmonize with the cosmos, while Gnosticism seeks to escape its material confines and transcend back into the cosmos. Neoplatonism emerges in the 3rd century and builds directly upon the work of Plato. It systematizes Plato's metaphysics into a detailed emanationist structure. Although built directly on the work of Plato, it still borrows some ideas and concepts of both Hermeticism and Gnosticism and develops them further. It tells us from the one flows the Nous, the divine intellect, then the psyche, the world soul, and from that, the material world. And much like Hermeticism and Gnosticism, it tells us that the main goal, the great work, is the union with the one. So that's Hermeticism, Gnosticism, and Neoplatonism for you. Their differences and their similarities. And if you have enjoyed today's content, then don't forget the old thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you're interested in this content. And with that, I'll see you again very soon on the next one.